afraid that I'm going to be like staring at her and then I'm going to forget what it's like my cue to talk, and it's stressful up here right now, people. I need you to know. Just kidding. But I wanted to just, before we get started, man, I love relationship series, and I think the reason that I love them so much is I believe that God wants us to have great relationships. I believe wholeheartedly that in the culture we live in today, I think bad relationships, toxic relationships are way too common in our culture. And as I see people move into adulthood, I see the divorce rate in the church not being much different than what it is in the world. And it's a passion of mine to see that change. And I believe that we can be the change. I believe that you and I can model what it looks like for the world to have healthy relationships. And so I love series like this. But I thought before we went into some of the content tonight, are any of you excited for this series? Are any of you ready to go? I hope so. I hope so. But I thought before we went any further, I would just kind of share a little bit about our story. And for those of you who don't know us, some of you might have heard it and you're like, oh gosh, here we go again. Some of you leaders who have been with us for multiple years are like, oh, snooze button. Anyways, but we've been dating since high school, and we started dating when I was a senior and she was a junior. But all through high school, honestly, like my best friend hinted at that I should date her. My mom at a baseball game, I played baseball. My mom was like, hey, the girl that was sitting next to me, I really like her, because my mom never approved of anybody that I dated. Anybody else, like your mom, just like, mom, come on, mom. Like she just never approved, but she was the first girl that she actually approved of. But basically the way that we started dating was your typical like love at first sight story. I mean, she saw me, I was walking down the hallway, and it was one of those things where she was just like, there he is. I know there is the rest of my life. And so just kind of went from there.
We have to set the record straight here.
Set what record straight?
So
I'm just trying to tell it how it was.
I mean, like the first 3 years I knew you, I didn't think you had a personality. And you kind of resembled a turtle with a Justin Timberlake hair.
No, I didn't resemble a turtle when I met you. I resembled a turtle in middle school. I met you in high school. I didn't resemble a turtle, but I did have a fro, and I did really like NSYNC. I'm not gonna lie. Justin Timberlake was goals. So let's be honest. Justin Timberlake is still goals.
The best part of the story was that my little sister had a crush on you first.
She did.
And we had a picture of you hanging up in our house with your Justin Timberlake hair and your basketball
I remember
uniform.
Your dad took it after a basketball game. He asked me for a picture. I wasn't sure if it was for you or your sister, but I was like, whatever.
Well,
Maybe it's for both.
So he just kind of grew on me as time went on.
Grew on you? That's funny. I don't remember it that way. I remember
Josh gets really scared when I have the microphone.
Yeah, I do. Sometimes, honestly. No, but I did have a fro, and it didn't really happen that way. Honestly, I met her and kind of started talking to her. There was this friend that I had that was constantly chasing her around, so I would make fun of him constantly, and that's how we kind of started talking, and she realized that I did have a personality. See, I was the type that I had my group of friends, but it was high school, right? So everybody sat at their own table. It was really weird. Do you guys still do that? Like where it's like the basketball table. When I left, can I tell you, when I left the basketball team table to move to her table, it was like I betrayed everybody. Like everybody on the basketball team started like giving me dirty looks and acting like I wasn't one of the boys and all that stuff. But I went to sit next to her, and I'm just gonna tell on myself, like I would bring peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day, and I'd drink Mountain Dew every day. And that was lunch.
And he would just sit there.
And I would sit there, literally, I had no problem talking to any other girl. Like, I had no problem at all. When I sat next to her, for some reason, I went mute. I got completely nervous. I was like so nervous, I just kept my head down and kept eating my peanut butter and jelly. And everybody around the table was just like, what is wrong with him? Like, why is he not talking? This is weird. And so, yeah. But anyways, that's how.
Here we are 15 years later.
Yeah, here we are 15 years later, after 10 years of marriage, 2 kids. I guess it worked out. No, I'm kidding. It worked out great. And so I think you should buy me something for 10 years of marriage. I'm just saying. I'm kidding. That's a joke. But no, I'm just so thankful that we were raised in church, and our parents both gave us such a great godly example at a young age of what a godly marriage and a godly relationship looked like. And so we both went into it with an advantage. And I think the point of tonight is we want to be able to give you that same advantage, because we believe that not only were we set up for success, but we've learned some things along the journey that can really be helpful.
Yeah, as I was thinking and praying about just this message and this series, I was just thinking about how vital it is that we have this conversation, that we talk about relationships, because there's never been a time in history more when culture is trying to define what relationships are, what they should look like. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, vlogs, they're all just bombarding us with all this information that your relationship should look like this. You should start dating when you're this age. And so really, as Jesus followers, it's so vital that we go back to God's word and let that define what healthy, successful relationships look like in our life. And if you go back to the beginning of time, when God created Adam, he said it's not good for man to be alone. And so I think sometimes we think like, oh, God's against dating. God doesn't want us to have relationships. When really we serve a relational God that says you need to be in relationships. Use my word to help you define what a healthy, successful relationship looks like. So I just wanted to go to Romans 12, 1-2, and it says, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. Do not copy the behavior and customs of this world. Let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn how to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." And so just looking at that scripture, it's just showing us that we can't go to the world for our standards of dating, but that God's word must be our standard. And so tonight, we just want to ask you the question, have you invited God into your dating life? Have you given that area of your life over to God and said, God, I want you to be the Lord of this area in my life? And so we're just going to kind of unpack that a little bit tonight for week 1. And so to start out, we just kind of wanted to talk about, so when are you ready to date? What does that look like in your life? So I'm going to share a little bit, then Josh is going to share a little bit about that. So for me, when I was just really thinking about that, I was thinking, is God number one in your life? Do you have a healthy relationship this way? Are you seeking after God and his will for your life? And do you love yourself? Like, are you okay with who God made you to be? Are you okay with, how he created you? Or are you sitting around looking on social media and comparing your life and what you look like and what you have to all these other people? Are you okay with who God made you to be? And so those are just kind of the things that I was just really chewing on when I was thinking about when are you ready to date?
Absolutely. 2 things to just recap and touch on what she was saying. First of all, if you're taking notes, which I'd encourage you to do, we passed out note cards, and they were pretty stellar. They had a united shield with a lion on them, and they're pretty ferocious. So you should take notes. But anyways, first of all, write this down if you're taking notes. Is Jesus Lord of all? Write that down. Write down that question. Is he Lord of all? Because if he's not Lord of all, then he's not truly Lord at all. And I think we need to know that. I think we need to, as a culture and as a church, know that, hey, Jesus has to be Lord over every area of my life. And then I want you to write down, I am his masterpiece. The Bible says that you are his masterpiece. And until you see yourself that way, you're always going to sell yourself short when it comes to dating. But we wanted to share with you just a few other things that show, are you ready? If you're asking the question, and if you are taking notes still, then I want you to write down the question, and how do I know if I'm ready? Write down just that phrase or that question, and then we'll give you some practical things of how you know you're ready. The first thing is simply, if your parents say you are. And that's for all the high school students in here. You need your parents' approval to date. And God places authority in our lives. How many of you know that? That's a shouter in church. Come on. But God places all authority in our lives. He's placed your parents there for a reason. And so you need to listen to your parents when it comes to dating. When they say it's time, it's time. The other thing is your connect group leader. And if you're not in a connect group, then you need to get in a connect group. Come on. What are you doing? Quit playing. Get in a connect group. Relationships are so vital to our lives. You need to have some, like, maybe a pastor in your life or a connect group leader that's able to speak into that situation as well. Because I think it's so important for you to have spiritual guidance in your life and people who can say, hey, no, that's not a good idea. Or, yeah, that's a great idea. Why don't you do that? Vitally important. And then I want you to write down some of these practical qualities. Here's just some practical qualities that you can take down and you can know. Here's how I can tell if I'm actually ready. First of all, are you serving? Are you serving in church? You're like, what does serving in church have to do with anything? You're going to learn about the heart of a servant through serving in the local church. And in order to make a marriage work, you're going to have to go in for what you can give, and you're going to have to take on humility, and you're going to have to take on the heart of a servant. And so it's vitally important. Some of the things that being involved in the church, you never knew this. Some of the things that being involved in the church does is it actually prepares you for every other area of your life, prepares you for marriage. And so that's vitally important. Is your relationship with God where it needs to be? Because like she mentioned earlier, if this relationship isn't right, then none of these relationships will be. If your vertical relationship with God isn't right, your horizontal relationships will be a mess as well. Are you emotionally stable? And this is an important one, and it's not to get down on anybody, but are you emotionally at a place where you're ready to date? And the question is, are you looking for someone to complete you? Or do you know that you're complete in Jesus? Yeah. Are you looking for someone to fill a void that they can't fill, or do you know that you're fulfilled in Jesus? It's vitally important, because if not, you're going to be on an emotional roller coaster. And we all see those people through dating relationships that they're getting every bit of validity, every bit of identity out of whoever it is they're dating. And they're looking for that person to fill a void in them that they were never meant to fill. And so the relationship is full of drama. The relationship is full of a bunch of neediness, if you will. And that person is just so needing this other person and so reliant on this other person. And that's never going to work. You have to make sure that you go in as a confident, whole person in Jesus before you even enter the relationship. Otherwise, you're looking to get into a toxic relationship. The next thing that I have down is, are you involved in a group? Because I believe that being involved in a group, and I know this might be redundant for some of you, being involved in a group is actually vital for you, whether you know it or not. I think that there is something about the wisdom that comes from community. There's something about having friends. I can tell you from experience, my friends from junior high are still some of my best friends to this day. My friends from high school are still some of my best friends to this day. Why? Because we grew up in church together. We're still serving in church together. And they've been helping me through some of the worst times of my life. I've helped them through some of the worst times of theirs. We've been there through the highs and the lows. You need people like that who are in your corner. You need great community around you. God has created each of us for community. The next thing is, are you okay with losing the person as a friend if the dating relationship doesn't work out? Are you okay with losing the person that you're trying to date as a friend if the relationship doesn't work out? Nobody thinks about that. And we've all heard the age-old like, oh, we could just be really good friends. That never works. It never works. I've never seen it work where somebody is dating and then all of a sudden they're like, let's just be really good friends. Because one person is always living on a prayer. And they're always going to take it as, oh, you want to date me again. And how many hopeless romantics, you don't have to raise your hand, but sometimes we're just hopeless romantics where we're just like, oh, it'll work out someday, and someday she'll come around, and I'm just going to keep being persistent. Sometimes you just need to back off. And sometimes you just need to know, like, okay, it's not working out. Don't trade your dignity for desperation. Make sure that you don't sell yourself short. If you're not somebody's best, if you aren't exactly what they want, then they aren't what you need. You need somebody who wants you back. And so don't sell yourself short. Dignity for desperation, not a good trade. And so just make sure that you are okay with losing the person as a friend if things don't work out. And then how important is Jesus to you? And what I mean by that is when something is going wrong in your life, when you have a problem, do you rely more on your friends or your family than you do on Jesus? Because Jesus needs to be the person that you're turning to. And if Jesus isn't the person that you're turning to now, you're not ready for a dating relationship just yet. And so those are just a few things practically on what I feel, man, you need to be ready. You need to be solid before going into that dating relationship. So, and then the fourth thing is simply this: date to marry. Don't date just to date. Please date to marry. Date somebody that you think you have a potential of marrying. Don't waste people's time. Don't waste your own time. Don't waste your emotions. Don't waste your heart. Make sure that there's somebody that you're like, I see a future with this person. And I just want to add this. You need to find somebody that complements your calling.
Yeah.
So if you don't know your calling yet, you're not going to know what you're looking for yet. If you don't know who you are yet, you don't know what you're looking for yet. So make sure that you know your calling, that your relationship with God is good, that you're fully dependent on Him, that you know what He's called you to do, and then find somebody, I believe, as you're pursuing God full speed and they're going after God full speed, you guys will find each other on that same path towards just pursuing Jesus, and both of you will complement each other's calling. I don't believe that you find somebody and then figure out your calling. I don't think that works either, because you need to make sure that there's somebody that complements it.
That's really good. So now we just kind of want to unpack some characteristics I'm going to share what a girl's looking for in a guy, and Josh is going to share what a guy's looking for in a girl. So I'm just going to go through these. Number one is a godly man. How they live, what they listen to, who they are, all of that glorifies God in their life. And so that's just looking for a man that God is number one in their life, and you can tell it by how they live. Number two is their character, who they are when no one is watching. And, I think in a room this size, we can say that, there's people in here that are really talented. You might be really good at sports. You might be a really good writer, a really good singer, a really good speaker. And talent, yes, it can open doors in your life, but character is what's going to sustain you. And so, I think girls are looking for a guy that has a character that's going to sustain them through life. And, I was just thinking about that in our relationship, and fast forward to, married for quite a few years, and we had a miscarriage and lost a baby. And I remember laying there in that hospital bed thinking, I'm so thankful that I'm married to a godly man that has character, that's sitting there praying for me when I'm walking through a really difficult time in my life. And so I think sometimes when we're young, we don't think about that. We just think about, who are we dating? Who are we going to prom with? And we're not thinking about, this is a life decision. And when I'm walking through a painful time in my life, I want somebody sitting next to me that's going to say, I'm praying for you. We're walking through this time together. So that's just, that was number two, character. Number three is compassion. Does his heart move for the things that moves God's heart? And that doesn't mean just like crying about sad children on a commercial or something. That means like they get up off the couch and they actually meet a need in someone's life. That means like they see a friend who's going through a painful time and they're actually there for that friend. So just somebody that's really moved with compassion in their life. And number four is actually my favorite, so pay extra attention to this, is a spirit of humility. And to me, what that looks like is someone who is slow to speak, quick to listen, and has a teachable spirit. And I think that's one of the things that I have fallen most in love with Josh over the years, is that he never wasted preparation time in his own life. And when we were young and married and didn't have a lot of money and just really seeking after God and what we felt he had called us to do, I remember him just working in housekeeping all day and coming home and going down in the basement and just praying and seeking after the heart of God. And so I just want to encourage you in this, that, God readies us in the dark so that we're not destroyed by the spotlight. And so you want to look for a man that's not wasting his preparation time, that's not afraid to seek after the heart of God and do things that other people aren't willing to do. So somebody that has quick to talk, slow to listen, and a teachable spirit. And number 5 is honoring. Does he teach? We want a man that treats us with respect, with kindness, and with value. And what does that look like? And for me, I was thinking back to when we were about 18, I think, and Josh was always the one that was like, I'll buy nothing or take less so that you can have more. And there was this vest that I wanted from Abercrombie for Christmas.
Shout out for Abercrombie. If you still wear Abercrombie, we'll have an altar call after the. I'm kidding. Abercrombie's still cool sometimes.
And
Sorry.
so Josh was like full in basketball because he was a senior in high school, so he didn't have to work a job at that time, but his parents gave him so much money per week for lunch. And so Josh would just like eat a candy bar or drink a can of pop to save that money to buy me this vest for Christmas. And nothing has changed. Josh still will go without so that I can have the best. And so I just think that that's such an amazing quality to look for in a guy. And, does he speak highly of you in front of other people? Does he always brag on you? That, we want a guy that's proud of us. And do we leave his presence feeling encouraged and better about ourselves? And, when I think about value, I think that when we're looking for a man that values us so much, that purity is the highest standard. They won't compromise our heart or our purity when they have true value for us. And number 6 is discipline. And that can look different in different areas of life. I think spiritually disciplined is so important. Are they going to church? Are they serving? Are they actively seeking a healthy relationship with God? Are they mentally disciplined in what they watch and what they listen to and just what they open their heart and their soul to? Are they disciplined in that area of life? Are they disciplined in finances? From the moment that Josh did work after he graduated high school and through college, most of the time I've known Josh, he's always probably had 2 jobs because he was so disciplined in our finances and was such a hard worker. And that's such an attractive quality in a man, especially as you get married and you go on and have a family. And are they disciplined in having a healthy lifestyle? And are they disciplined?
I bought a gym membership.
We had this ongoing joke because I think it was before we had Jude. I'm just going to tell on you.
I'm now donating to Stay Fit 24.
We paid for this gym membership
cause.
for 2 years because you had to go in to cancel it, and Josh just wouldn't go in and cancel it. And you had to have the ID of the person that had the membership, so I couldn't cancel it. So we have this ongoing membership that we just like to donate to gym memberships in Josh's name.
I believed in the cause of Planet Fitness too. It was the judgment-free zone. I was like, I can live with that. It's great. I'm never going to come, but I believe in what they're doing.
Anyways, those were my 6 points. Hopefully you can top that.
I don't think I can. I feel like we should just shut it down now. I don't feel like I have much after that. But that was really good. 6 points. Hopefully you took those down. I'm going to try to pull myself together here and try to muster up 6 points that are half as good as those ones. So my 6 things that guys are looking for. Here are 6 things that guys are looking for. They're not, some of them honestly aren't that much different. The first thing is simply this: puts God first. That she has an active and an authentic faith in Jesus. I think that's first and foremost the number one thing that I was looking for. And one of the things that I loved about Jillian was it was never even a question as to whether she was pursuing God in her life. She never was really the type to be stagnant in her walk with God. She was always moving forward. And I think anytime you're looking for someone to date, it should always be somebody that's going to continue to encourage you and push you to move closer to God and forward in your relationship with God. And I think back to when we were sitting at Panera, and I was going through this life conflict of feeling called to Bible school, and I hadn't said a word to her about Bible school, and she looked at me and was like, I think maybe you should just go to Rhema. And I thought, did I even say anything about that? But God had been dealing with me for like months that I needed to go to Rhema. And she was in tune with God too and knew that I needed to go. So she had a conversation to release me and be like, hey, like if you decide to go, like I'll still be here, but you need to obey God. And I think that just speaks volumes to like what we're looking for. When I say somebody that complements your calling, I was fortunate. I didn't know my calling quite yet. I was still discovering it. And so that's why I say that, man, it's best to know your calling and find someone that complements it, because, man, that was complicated. That was one of the reasons that I really didn't want to leave, because I really thought that she was the one I was going to marry. But I was thankful that she had a relationship with God for herself, was able to hear from God for herself. And I think that's huge. Serves in church is another huge one for me. You're like, you keep talking about serving in church. I believe wholeheartedly, whether I was a pastor or not, if I were sitting here in front of you or I were just still an usher like I used to be, because I believed strongly for a long time that I was a lifelong usher, that I was going into business and I was going to be a lifelong usher. And I was perfectly cool with that because I was serving in the house of God and I believed in that. And so I think that's something that's always been so huge, and that should be huge on your list too, guys. If you're looking for a girl to date, look for someone who's connected in church. And so the second thing is simply this: character. Jillian touched on character a little bit. I don't really need to say much more about it, but the thing that I had down is they allow their Bible-formed beliefs to affect what they think, what they say, and what they do. That's vitally important, and with character, modesty and purity should be a high priority. And we live in a culture where modesty and purity are not a high priority. And so they need to be. For me, I wasn't looking for someone that like flaunted out there for everyone to see. I was looking for someone that was modest and beautiful inside and outside. Like, it's important. Like, I get the whole looks thing. I get it. I get that you have to be attracted to the person. I get it. But can I tell you that like beauty on the inside is far more important? That like who they are really when nobody else is around is far more important than that. I'm not saying that you have to not be attracted to the person that you date. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you need to look as much at who they are as how they look. Actually more at who they are than how they look. The third thing is confidence. Confidence is a huge one for me. One of the things that I loved about Jillian in high school was I knew that she didn't need me to be happy. I knew that she didn't need a relationship in general to be happy. I knew that she would be just fine by herself. And there was something attractive about that. She walked with a quiet confidence. She walked with just a confidence and a dignity about herself that I thought like, man, that's super attractive. And I think when you're confident about who you are, who God made you to be, when you understand who you are in Jesus, it changes everything about you. It changes how you view yourself. And when you change how you view yourself, it'll change how others view you. And one of the things I felt like she had a handle on at a young age, and I think it's because she was raised in church, served in church, had parents that constantly reinforced the word to her, but she knew who she was. There was no doubt about it. She knew who she was. So that's a huge thing. Comfortable in their own skin, like with confidence. You're comfortable in your own skin. There's something about somebody that's just comfortable being them. And I love being around those people, that they don't need someone else to validate who they are. They're just good being them. The fourth thing is this: driven and compassionate. I use those two together because I'm kind of cheating, because I actually had 8 and couldn't narrow it down is reason number 1. But reason number 2 is like one of the things I was attracted to about Jillian is she's very, very, and I mean very driven. Like she has achiever in her top 5. And can I tell you, she's going to achieve something. See? I mean, can't even let me talk. What's going on? These are my 6. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, she has achiever in her top 5. She was like the honor roll all A student. I'm not saying you got to be an all A student to be attractive, but I was just attracted to the fact that she was willing to work harder than like anybody else. She was always going to do her best no matter the situation and no matter what job she worked. Even when she worked in like the end of high school and into college, she was always the hardest worker, and no matter where she was, she always got promoted. And I was like, man, it's so attractive that she actually is driven and works hard. But in that, she wasn't too driven to be compassionate. She wasn't too caught up in what she was trying to accomplish that she didn't have time for people. She still loved on people. She still saw needs in people. And one of the things that I love the most is, to this day, like, she'll get together bags of clothes and find people that, like, she just runs into that she's like, they don't look like they have much. And she'll just give a bag of clothes, and sometimes it's what I just bought her for, like, last birthday or something. I'm like, glad you like that. That's awesome. But no, I'm so glad that she's a giver. But it takes compassion to actually move towards something. And I'm so thankful that she moves and, like, gives. I think being a giver is so attractive. The fifth thing is simply this: love for life and a positive attitude. How many of you know that a positive attitude is just so needed, so necessary? There are few things worse than a negative attitude. There are few things worse than the person that always sees the glass half full. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be married to somebody that wasn't positive. One of the things that I was attracted to the most about Jillian in high school, before I even knew her, is she always walked the hallway with this big smile on her face. And she always had a huge smile on her face. I could tell by just watching her, she really, like, is happy all the time. She really enjoys life. And I'm like, that's what I want. I want somebody that loves life. I want somebody that has an excitement and an enthusiasm about life. Because how many of you know life is going to have its ups and downs? Life is going to have challenging moments, and you need somebody that's going to smile through it, that's going to laugh through it, that's going to go ahead and keep a positive attitude through it. I still believe that your attitude, it determines your altitude.
Yeah.
Your attitude determines your altitude. It really does. It really does. If you read through the Bible, I've had people say, like, well, you can't find that scripturally. Tell me where Jesus had a negative attitude. Tell me where he didn't see an opportunity where everybody saw an obstacle. Tell me where he didn't see a miracle where everybody saw a mess. Jesus was one of the most faith-filled, positive people to walk the face of the earth. The most. Let's be honest, the most. And so I believe that we should be like Jesus. And so if we're like Jesus, man, that'll propel us. And so that's one of the things that attracted me to her as well. The sixth thing is this loyalty. Loyalty. It's huge. It's huge. And if they're cheating on you now, it's only going to get intensified later. I hear people tell me all the time, well, when we get married, these things will change. No, they won't. When we get married, he won't have that pornography, or she won't, he won't, whatever. It's not true. Whatever you deal with now, it's only going to intensify once you get married. So you might as well deal with the root of some of those issues. How many of you know that every great relationship is built on trust? If you can't trust the person, you can't be in a relationship with the person. And we have a lot of things that are after that trust, that foundation. And so one of the best things you can do is just be a loyal person, not be a divided person. And the reason I went into talking about pornography and some of those things is because that is being divided. It really is. You can't be looking at something in the shadows and then love your wife well in the spotlight in the future. You can't be looking at things in the shadows and then love your husband in the spotlight. You can't do it. It's just not possible. You're always going to be divided between those two things. You need to make a commitment right now while you're young. Man, I'm going to save myself. I'm going to save my eyes. I'm going to save my heart for the person that I'm going to marry. I'm going to save my purity. I'm going to be pure for the person that I'm going to marry. See, don't be divided on this. Be loyal. Trust is the foundation. I don't know about you, but man, I want to have a healthy relationship, and I know that you want to have a healthy relationship. The way that you do it is by being a loyal person. One of the things that I love the most about Jillian is you never had to wonder. You never had to question. In high school, this is a funny story. Most of my friends tried to hit on her while I wasn't around. The majority, literally. I was at a basketball game one time on Valentine's Day, and one of my best friends tried to take her out, tried to hit on her. Crazy, right? I'm so thankful that she was loyal. The first thing that she did was she let me know, hey, this happened, and I just wanted you to know that, hey, I wasn't gonna do that. And so I had them drop me back off and that sort of thing. I'm so thankful, but it started all the way back then where trust was built. And so now we had a foundation. Some of you, for the sake of a relationship, ladies, you're going to have to get rid of the best guy friend. Nobody? Everybody's just like dead silent. Oh my gosh. You're stuck on trying to figure out who the friend is. They don't go here. Don't worry. I grew up in Canton, so there's a good chance, like 65% chance they go here. But they don't actually. They live in a different state now, thankfully. Just kidding. But anyways, no, I love them. We've made up since then. But girls, you're going to have to get rid of you might have to get rid of the best guy friend if you're going to really pursue like a relationship with somebody else. One of the things that I've noticed is like we'll have this best guy friend that we flirt with and that they're always around, and then we're trying to date somebody else. That just usually doesn't work. It just usually causes for jealousy. It usually causes for lack of trust. And then you're going to say, well, hey, he must be insecure about himself if he's looking. No, are you giving him a reason? One of the things I always loved about Jillian is she never gave me a reason to feel insecure. Not that I needed her to make me feel confident, because I was pretty confident in myself. I was fine without a girlfriend. I went through most of high school without a girlfriend. I had practice for basketball all the time, so I didn't really have that much time for a girlfriend. But once she came along, I was like, we will make time for what's important. But the thing is, she never gave me that reason to feel like I had to lack trust or had to question whether she was loyal. So I think there's few things better than a loyal person. The Bible talks about how a faithful person, a faithful man or woman, who can find? Everybody wants to tell you how faithful they are or how good they are. But it's really hard to find, actually. It's really hard to find somebody with that character. So those are my 6 things, and they weren't nearly as climactic as hers. Hers were much better, but mine were effective, I feel like. And so I'm feeling okay about the night. I'm feeling like we really need to just talk about Jesus for a moment, and then we need to pray for the Cavs.